The biggest takeaway is your statement of work. You have to get this statement of work right. And if that's not correct, you're doomed to fail, guaranteed.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Global Trade Show. I'm your host, Lawrence Christoffels. And today we're going to talk all things 3PL. And to do that, to share some amazing insights and experience, I'm joined all the way from the US by Dr. Derek Westfall. Derek, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Lawrence.
Derek, can we tell the audience about your background and how you've come into this expertise with 3PL and broader supply chain?
Sure. My supply chain career, I started my supply chain career back in 1988 and worked all the way up through 2022 in industry. I retired from the Boeing company after the last 15 and a half years of my career. But probably my biggest claim to fame when I was with Boeing was implementing the first 3PL within the Boeing fabrication division, which was a pretty significant milestone, not only for myself, but actually for the Boeing company. And since 2022, I've been teaching at two universities locally here in the States, and I'm a full-time professor in supply chain, but I can talk about anything supply chain related, but I really have a niche and a passion for 3PLs.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, what you mentioned there about a company like Boeing, who is so intricately involved with control and quality right across their end-to-end supply chain, to consider outsourcing that is a huge step, I'd imagine.
Well, Boeing came to the realization, this is what a lot of manufacturers come to the realization, is that they are really good at making the products that people buy, but what they're not good at is warehousing and those types of things, right? That's not their core competency. So once they figured out that warehousing was somebody else's core competency, then they decided, you know what, that's a better use of our resources.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have this chat with you, because so many of our viewers, they're importers, wholesalers, distributors, or exporters for that matter as well. But as you say, they've got their core competencies, they know their product knowledge, R&D, all that stuff. But the warehousing expertise has really evolved a lot, and it continues to really change at a rapid rate. In your opinion, Derek, why should companies be considering 3PL?
Yeah, I focus typically on manufacturers, so that's what I'd like to talk about today. Is like, so manufacturer, you think about supply chain, source, make, deliver, right? I buy something, I make something, I deliver something, and what manufacturers are good at is that make. And if they have good suppliers, then that's 1/3 of their supply chain. If they make their products, so we're going to make an assumption that they're good at that. But on the back end, the deliver part, they're not good at, and that includes the warehousing and the transportation, all that kind of stuff. So if 2/3 of your supply chain are working, but that last third is not working, then your supply chain's broke, right? So if you can find somebody that their core competency is the warehousing and the transportation part of it, then that makes your overall supply chain stronger.
Yeah, well said. That's so critical, as you say, that especially getting the product out to your customers is ultimately one of the best to measure your success. So it's great to have the best product, great manufacturing, but if it's not getting to your customers timely and fast and having the whole process working, then that user experience by your customers and end users can really damage your brand.
Well, and the other thing too is if you are doing it correctly, your supply chain can be used as a competitive weapon against your competitors as well.
Absolutely. So what are some of the innovations taking place for manufacturers and the 3PL landscape?
Yeah, so again, the traditional way of thinking of 3PLs is I have some freight, move my freight, store my stuff. That's very traditional. But what I'm seeing more of, manufacturers are starting to understand this concept of what are we good at? What's our core competency? And there's a lot of light manufacturing stuff where we could I'll give you an example of when Nike used to do golf, right? They would send their golf clubs into the 3PL and the 3PL would screw the golf club heads onto the shafts of the clubs, right? That's screwing golf head clubs onto shafts is not Nike's core competency. They're really good at marketing and those types of things. So again, when you get into complex assembly or heavy duty machining, there's certain things, part marking, stamping, these types of things that a 3PL could certainly do for less cost. It wouldn't impact the quality, those types of things. The other thing is kitting. Kitting is, think of it like you're a surgeon, right? But this can be for any assembly operation, that you have all the instruments you need and all the tools, all the parts you need to perform this operation. Well, it's the same thing, that if the 3PL could provide you kits of your assemblies, your sub-assemblies and your assemblies, then you're ready to go. You're not spending time looking for parts. Your kits completely full, delivered as you need it. And so they get into a lot of that. They also get into some light quality stuff, quality inspection type stuff, not major heavy duty like CMM type stuff, but light quality type stuff. So manufacturers are seeing the benefit of 3PLs, what I term as value added services, as opposed to just moving freight around.
Yeah, the value add services, it's really becoming one of their big hooks to really secure and retain great contracts as a 3PL provider. So absolutely.
100%.
What about things like, free trade zones or some of these economic zones where you can do some even more advanced things with 3PL? Is that something that you've been involved with as well?
I have not done the free trade zones. I certainly understand how they work, but again, if you were going to do that stuff in a different country, all that kind of stuff, so there would be benefits to that definitely should be explored. It's not really my bailiwick of expertise, but again, the whole concept is, what is my core competency? What's your core competency? Offload what's not mine, and make that supply chain that much stronger.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about what you've seen in relation to some of the new automation that seems to be, really shaking things up in the 3PL world. Is that something that you've sort of kept across?
Well, the automation. So again, it's interesting that you asked that question, because if I'm the customer, let's say I'm looking for a 3PL, right? I provide you a statement of work and say, Lawrence, here's my statement of work, and here's how much I'm going to need to receive. Here's how much I'm going to store. Here's how much I'm going to ship. I turn that over to you to say, look, we're going to use robots, or we're going to use barcodes, or we're going to use these types of scanners, or we're going to use RFID for inventory control, whatever it is. It's really on the 3PL to either have that technology in their back pocket or develop that technology, whatever. But yeah, their technology is coming more and more. I mean, you can just see it, because again, I don't know exactly how it is in Australia, but here in the States, we have a 100,000 truck drivers shortage. We could use 100,000 truck drivers today, and those are good paying jobs. We could use probably 1 million warehouse people the warehouse jobs aren't that much paying. So the technology is coming, whether we like it or not. It's going to be here, because it's just going to be out of a necessity.
Yeah, very true. And yes, you're right. I think that's a big challenge right across the world, is making sure that they can attract some of the workers needed for the supply chain, and more companies wanting to stay, whether it's on the road freight, warehousing, in all the sheds and supply chain. It's just a major challenge. Yeah.
Yep.
So finally, Derek, I want to ask, what if, as a consultant yourself, what's the most important factors? What do you normally tell manufacturers when they're considering, shouldn't I look at 3PL? What are some of the things that you normally speak to?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is your statement of work. And what your statement of work is your description of what you're offloading to your potential 3PL partner. And you have to get that right. And this is where I really help companies is to get this right and ask the right questions to make sure that you've captured everything. Because when you hand that statement of work over to the 3PL, they're going to use that and say, okay, I need to hire this many people. I need this skill set. I need this type of equipment. And if it's not right, if it's not accurate, well, then your whole 3PL partnership has got off to a rocky start, because they don't have the right people, they don't have the right equipment, they rented this much space, they only need this much space. You told them it's going to receive this much, they're only getting this much, or they're getting twice what you said. You have to get this statement of work right. And if that's not correct, you're doomed to fail, guaranteed.
Yeah. A lot of those challenges myself, and you're absolutely right, Derek. I think the statement of work has to be paramount. The data set, your SKU master files, all the type of things that typically over to another party to look after, that it's super critical. Yeah.
Yeah. It really shows you how complex your operation is. Like, there's a lot of tribal knowledge floating around inside that factory, but now all of a sudden that's going to be gone. And you have to put it on paper and document this so that the 3PL has a chance.
I wanted to ask just quickly before we wrap up about, how do your students respond to this? I mean, I know that you're a great lecturer there. How do they sort of embrace this? What are some of the common questions or even ideas that they come up with?
Students are really, for the most part, my students are juniors. So my supply chain class is the very first class that they've taken, right? And when you start talking about the basics of supply chain, again, I structure my whole class around source, make, deliver. And so that it's really fun as a teacher to see their eyes open. Like, you can see the looks on their faces, like, supply chain is not really that complicated. It really isn't. Like, I was scared of this class. I didn't know what to do. But at the end of the day, if you just think source, make, deliver, those three main processes, and of course, there's millions of stuff that happens in between all that stuff. But I tell them by the end of the first day, you'll be able to sit down with your folks or your friends or your roommates at dinner and explain what supply chain is. Because to me, it really is that simple.
I love it. Yeah. And I think I was like, when they relate to the products that they see at home or in the classroom,
Yeah.
and that they know that actually that's come off a boat or off an aircraft and on a truck, through a warehouse, they get to actually start to, see the cogs moving in their
Yeah.
mind about how it actually turned up.
Yeah. I think a lot of times they just take it for granted, right? They never really thought about it. But first day of class, I have everybody take out their cell phone, and I say inside that cell phone is 200 different components that came from 43 different countries. Yeah, all came together to fit your phone. And there's a lot of puzzled looks on their faces, but then we start explaining it. And yeah, I have several students every term switch their majors because of my class. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. Absolutely. That's especially looking for more and more supply chain experts. And, you're doing a great service to the whole sector, really. So congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Especially with the different time zones, to chat with us on the Global Trade Show. I'm sure we're going to have to speak again because you are a wealth of knowledge. Thanks for sharing this small insight into 3PL. And I know that, as we've sort of discussed off air, there's so much we could love to talk about, which we will do in the coming, probably in the coming months as well.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me, Lawrence.
Thanks.
Take care.